Good evening. Tonight we are discussing filmmaking. Yes, filmmaking. I've got three. Tonight on the program, we are very happy to receive for our discussion renowned America's filmmaker and who is also an envy of many. We have had an opportunity to sample her works and to be able to see what she's done. And that's Miss Alex Madigan. Miss Madigan, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Guthrie. I so appreciate being here. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. Is it your first time in Africa or in Zimbabwe?
It's not my first time in Africa. I've been very fortunate to see several and visit several countries in Africa, but it is my first time in Zimbabwe, yes.
And what's your impressions of Zim so far?
I love Zim, I really do, and I've been able to see, one of the first things I was able to see here is Great Zimbabwe in photographs. I just don't think it does the incredible majesty of that place justice. Coincidentally, my daughters in Los Angeles studied Great Zimbabwe in their art history class, so they were very envious of my being able to go and see it in person. But it's obviously a world recognized monument, but to experience it in real life was just amazing. And then I'm also going to Vic Falls next Saturday, so I'm very excited about that as well.
You'll never get tired of the Vic Falls, I can assure you that.
Really?
Once you set your foot in Vic Falls, you wouldn't want to leave. You always want, if you were to leave, you always want to come back.
Right. How many times have you been, Guthrie?
Oh, so many times. I was actually there last weekend for
really?
Africa's biggest marathon, the Econet Victoria Falls Marathon.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. So they run a marathon along the 26 miles along the...
Yeah, so that's 42 kilometers.
Oh, right, of course.
That's the main race, and then there's 21 kilometers.
Oh, that's
and
incredible.
Of course, for others, 7.5.
Right.
And for others who really just want to just flex their muscles,
right.
You engage in a fun run.
Oh, that's
Okay.
great. I'm so excited to see it. I really am.
Sure. Fantastic. You, the envoy for the American Film Showcase, and you've got a very strong CV. And you are here in Zimbabwe conducting workshops with the local filmmakers and
Yes.
creatives.
Yes.
What is your overall assessment of where we are as Zimbabwe, insofar as the filmmaking is concerned?
I have been so deeply struck by the level of passion and enthusiasm and desire to build a filmmaking community. Let me take that back. The filmmaking community in Zimbabwe still exists, but to take it to the next level, to sense that incredible passion that exists here is deeply inspiring and exciting for me to be a part of. In these workshops, what we do is we basically, it's very much of an exchange of ideas. I leave these workshops with an equal amount of knowledge, and I feel like I can go back to the States and do my job as an independent producer much better for having participated in workshops, such as these. But I have to say, Zimbabwe is really singular in the immense desire to further, I would say, the Zimbabwean filmmaking community, and the talent and experience that I've witnessed in this class, in this workshop, has been truly remarkable. And I've really loved every moment of it. I really have. It's an incredible group.
Mm-hmm. So, what sort of skills are you dealing with in this workshop? Because we've got a very good cast of experienced filmmakers, and the upcoming ones.
Yes.
And also the students of
Yes.
film.
Right.
And the creativity.
Yes.
So what sort of age groups are you dealing with here?
It's really interesting that you asked that, Guthrie, because there is one young man in our class named Courage who did a teaser, who's a student at Ziftessa, the school that we're at, and he did a trailer and he showed it to me, and I was really blown away by how accomplished it was. Now, this is a student just finishing. I think he may have just graduated or he's in his senior, his last year of film school, but the quality was truly impressive. So there's Courage at the beginning of his career, and then there's Leonard, who's a seasoned filmmaker, storyteller, poet, etc. So the level of experience or the years of experience are very vast, I think, in difference in the group, but the talent is really so evident. So you're right; it's a very different. In terms of years worked in the film business, there's definitely a difference in the participants. The one thing I'll say too is I come strictly from, I'm a producer in the United States, so I come strictly from the producerial standpoint. And so the discussions that we're having is how do you start a film from the inception, from the birth of an idea, whether it's a book or an article or a script, and you put your eggs in that basket and say, I want to take this on and see it come to fruition, all the way through the development process, working with a writer, working with a director to see their point, to see their vision come to life. Pre-production, hiring of crew, financing, how do you source financing was a big discussion of ours, and then overseeing the actual physical production, post-production, and then distribution and marketing and getting your film out there in the world, whether it be through film festivals, streaming services, etc. So it's essentially that whole arc of a film is what we're covering and discussing. And, there's some difference in how, the people who I'm meeting in the workshop approach their job, but there's a ton of overlap as well. And what was exciting, am I talking too much, Guthrie? I feel like, I feel,
it's so important for our viewers to understand that.
Oh, thank you so much. Today what was really interesting is we talked we exchanged production war stories, and we talked about difficult experiences that had happened to us on set, whether we were, whether it was a director or a producer or an editor, et cetera. And we all kind of exchanged, because you really only learn from your mistakes in film production, so we all exchanged these stories. And what was fun for me is the universality, like the issues that the filmmakers in Zimbabwe had faced in terms of clashing egos or tight schedules or money being spent when it shouldn't. We're all the same that I face as a U.S. filmmaker as well.
Let's talk more about those things because they're very interesting, because it's either they stand in between success and failure, or they can actually take you down.
Right.
Please join us in the second segment as we discuss the visits and the prospects of Zimbabweans having to wake up from a very long slumber after benefiting from visiting American film producer and American Film Showcase envoy, Alex Madigan. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are in the second segment of this week's program. And on the program tonight, we have visiting U.S. film producer, who is also the envoy for the American Film Showcase. That's Alex Madigan. Ms. Madigan, there's one thing that caught my eye: the business of conducting filming. When you bring the word business, everyone wants to get busy and everyone looks at the economic benefits. From your discussions with the creatives and the film producers and makers, do you get the sense that we have understood the business of filmmaking?
Most definitely. I mean, business of filmmaking is always a, interesting title, I think, in the sense that, yes, filmmaking is always a business. There's money involved, there's investment, there's a workforce. It's always, it's an industry. That's why that's why they call it the film industry back in the States, for sure. But I do think there is, so much. Obviously, it stems from a creative form, so there is a storytelling component and a love for storytelling that has to be at the core, I think, of all filmmaking and all people who are participating in filmmaking. I'm just saying, there are so many easier ways to make a living than working in film. There are constant setbacks. As an independent producer, I am frequently told the word no. It's a battle to get your films made, but I essentially love what I do, and I love it even more when I feel that sort of sense of community and that passion is shared on a group level. And going back to the workshop, I so deeply feel that with the participants that are here. So it's been, and I have to say too, this program is in conjunction with the U.S. Embassy in Zimbabwe as well, and they've been wonderful hosts during this time too.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure your workshop is not only limited and focused on the creatives and the film producers and makers, but it extends to policymakers. What sort of policies, I would like to believe that some of these things should be really global in terms of promoting, the film industry. What sort of policies do you think are so crucial to make sure that the Zimbabwean film industry and the creatives, in particular, are able to express themselves and be able to build more from what has been built previously?
It's such a good question, and we had an incredible visit with the National Council of Arts to discuss that specifically about where does Zimbabwe go from here in terms of building up this incredible infrastructure of talent that they have, and which is so evident in this country. How do you take it to the next level? How do you promote indigenous filmmaking that can be potentially seen on a global level? There are two things, and we met with Napoleon and Dr. Marari at a remarkably impressive group at the National Council of Arts. And one of the many, two of the things that we spoke about is the establishment of a legitimate film commission here. It wouldn't fall under the umbrella of an arts council, but would be an entity in and of itself. And that's one very important step to really found that specific entity. The other thing that was explored and very much discussed is the use of tax incentives in Zimbabwe. And the use of tax incentives would encourage foreign filmmakers to come here and shoot more in Zimbabwe, whether it be from other African countries or eventually globally too. And this in turn would enable for local crews to be trained better. It would enhance local businesses. It would encourage more tourism of Zimbabwe because it's such a beautiful, beautiful country. And so to highlight the country too in this way in film, it would be a huge, could provide huge assets down the line. So I believe those two initiatives, establishing a film commission and then also providing tax incentives would be a huge step into making the Zimbabwe film community a vibrant and incredibly successful one, because it's all there, it really is. The passion and the talent is there. It's just being able to provide the resources for them to realize their goals, I think.
So is this what obtains in some jurisdictions where you have had some work?
I'm so sorry, Guthrie?
Is this what obtains in some of the jurisdictions that you have actually visited? The things that you're talking about, the Independent Film Commission, and those tax incentives?
Right. Well, I frequently in the United States, we deal a lot with tax incentives because there are certain states that provide them, and they become filmmaking hubs. Initially, like I'll use the state of Oklahoma, for instance, that now has a a pretty big tax incentive and has brought in very many film productions there, including the huge Martin Scorsese film, The Killers of the Osage Moon, that shot there, and I think it was like a $150 million production. But initially, Oklahoma did not have the equipment, really, the ease of locations, and the crew base to really support that kind of level of filmmaking. But the higher the tax incentives became, the more easy they were to access and the more lucrative they were. People start moving to Oklahoma, and then if crews are brought in to shoot there, they teach local crews. So you get these different crew bases that will emerge once these tax incentives come into play, and more shooting is done in various places. And now there are global ones. I mean, Croatia has a great tax incentive. Hungary has a great tax incentive. Australia has very lucrative government grants. The country of Jordan, which I shot a movie in, has a tourism grant too, and so if you bring in crew there and Jordan is portrayed in a way that's appealing, you will get your hotels and food paid for. So there are many different ways to tackle it. Am I talking too much, Guthrie?
Not at all. Not at all.
I want you to be able to.
I've dealt with artists before, and I have no qualms with that at all.
Oh, thank you so much.
Feel free. We're giving you the freedom.
Oh, thank you, Guthrie.
Of this studio.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
And the viewers, they are thoroughly enjoying that. That I can tell you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Because we never have people who leave their stations to go and do something else when I'm on air.
Thank you, Guthrie. I so appreciate that. It's just, when you get passionate about something, you tend to be voluble. So, but
it is that passion that would want to see you exhibiting to those who would want to go far, Yeah. So we cannot then curtail that.
Thanks, Guthrie.
Please join us in the final segment as we bring to a close this week's program, where we are having American Film Showcase envoy and American producer Alex Madigan. Welcome back, and to those who are just joining us for this week's program, we are actually at the tail end of a very, very interesting discussion that we are having here with visiting U.S. film producer and American Film Showcase envoy. That's Miss Alex Madigan. Mm-hmm. Miss Madigan, I think it's fair to say that Zimbabweans, they love their films. And Zimbabweans also love film in general. But there's been something. It started off as a quiet revolution, but now we can actually say it. It is making noise. The comedy, including the skits that we now see being exported to social media, digital.
Right.
Do you have those creatives who are making waves in Zimbabwe as part of the attendees in your workshop?
I most definitely think so, yes. There is so much, there's music talent there, there's writing talent there. Definitely, I would think that there would be a great deal of potential comedic talent there, too. It's very diverse in terms of the skill set that each of these participants bring to the table. My wonderful colleague who's with me on this this trip, Darina Abubakar, has also said there is a tremendous thirst and desire to see African content worldwide. There really is. We are at a high point for that, and that's something to definitely capitalize in this particular moment. If you look at film festivals, there's so much more programming of African content. Whether it be Cannes Film Festival, even smaller film festivals like Tribeca, which recently had a Zimbabwean film there called Rise. So we're seeing really a huge uptick in wanting to know more about the continent and the separate identities and cultures of all of its countries. So it's a very, very heady time, I think, too.
Great. Great hearing that. Do you make follow-ups after these workshops to try and see if you could further expose one or two talents from the people who have attended these workshops in the US or other markets?
Most definitely. I first started doing these workshops in conjunction with AFS, American Film Showcase, and now it's 10 years. So my first one was actually in Egypt. I've remained very much in touch with those, with several people in my workshop. I very much think that people should tell their own stories, but I would love to always serve in sort of maybe an executive producer capacity for films that are generated or initiated in these workshops. So the film that I worked on in Lebanon, for instance, did sort of take shape in a workshop that I did there in 2017, and I ended up producing a film in Lebanon called 1982. Yes, my hope is, to continue to advise in that capacity, but to also very much encourage the filmmakers here to tell their stories and to get those out globally.
Yes. Telling a story, an original story, it brings me to asking this question. People tend to be exotic, tend to try and portray other cultures and embed them in their work, be it in music, be it in filming. How detrimental is that to actually showcasing real talent and your own story for Zimbabwean filmmakers?
Guthrie, if I'm understanding your question, you're asking how important authentic storytelling is to. I completely agree with you. And in the United States, for instance, there has been a huge push in recent years for what we call authentic storytelling, in terms of the creatives being. I'll give you an example for people with disabilities not to be portrayed by abled people, for stories that deal with Black culture not to be told by white people. And this has happened, we have had so many, for lack of a better word, sins of the past where we've seen these egregious mistakes being made. And now there is a huge push for authentic storytelling. And that really transfers, I think, to supporting and encouraging Indigenous storytelling worldwide in every single community. So that's. Am I answering your question?
Yes,
that's a huge. And I think sometimes the best that I can do is just to encourage and be an ally, I guess, in seeing in helping people tell their stories if they need that. So. That's something I would love to do if the necessity arose in terms of this workshop.
Mm-hmm. I know that you might not be an expert on piracy, but we've seen how piracy nearly decimated the music industry.
Yes.
And we believe that there have been so many attempts to also try to decimate the film industry. What sort of advice are you giving the creatives and the filmmakers and producers at your workshops with regards to how they can protect their future works?
It's such a good question. I think, basically it all boils down to education and probably letting people know how harmful the effects of piracy are. If piracy becomes rampant, it just means less revenues for films, and when less revenues are become sort of the way of life in terms of, I mean, you talked about the music industry being a stark example for that, but then it really comes down to independent films being harder and harder to make. Who's going to invest in these films if the revenues are so hard to procure because piracy is so rampant? So I do think, like, there were many years ago in the States, they've really cracked down on piracy. It's become like a federal crime, but they did have many ad campaigns about how this really was a self-destructive habit. So that's one way to counteract it, for sure, is to let people know how eventually, if you keep pirating films, probably less films will get made.
Sure, but I can tell you something that would make you leave this studio a very free person.
Right.
No one can tamper with my program here.
Right.
So I'm not afraid of the pirates.
Right.
It's been great having you here on the program.
Guthrie, thank you so
Alex.
much. I've had such a wonderful time meeting you, and I so appreciate this. Thank you, and thank you for letting me drone on. I so appreciate that too.
I told you that you were in good company. so I was actually enjoying it.
Very much so. Thank you so much, Guthrie.
And the freedom is the buzzword.
That's very true. I'll remember that. Thank you, Guthrie.
Sure. I've got nothing to add or nothing to subtract other than to say same presenter, same station, same time, same day. Until next week, good night.